captured, not sanctioned, not pressured. In the heart of Caracas, under the noses of loyalists, intelligence services, and foreign advisors, Nicolás Maduro is allegedly taken out in a lightning raid linked to Donald Trump-era networks, according to fast-moving, unconfirmed reports circulating through diplomatic channels, intelligence leaks, and energy market chatter. Friends, the mainstream belief says this is impossible, that Washington only uses sanctions, speeches, and statements, that Latin America is yesterday's chessboard, that energy wars are fought with spreadsheets, not special operations. But the hidden reality? The oil wars never ended. They just went quiet. Why now? Why Caracas? Why take a risk like this when elections, inflation, and wars elsewhere are already stretching the global system to its limits? And why, pay attention, do the rumors immediately jump to Cuba and Greenland? Watch out. This isn't just about Venezuela. This is about control. Control of barrels, control of routes, control of leverage. It's about who ultimately decides the price you pay at the pump and who bleeds first when markets panic. But before we go any further, remember this. In geopolitics, what sounds crazy is often what's already being rehearsed. Regime change by memo is slow. Regime change by shock? That's different. Friends, let's get started. To understand what's happening today, we have to go back to the fundamentals. Venezuela sits on the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, more than 300 billion barrels. Yes, more than Saudi Arabia. On paper, this country should have been an energy superpower, a regional anchor, a petrostate with leverage, prosperity, and influence. Instead, it became one of the most dramatic economic collapses of the modern era. Since 2013, Venezuelans' GDP has fallen by more than 75%. Inflation didn't just rise, it detonated, reaching millions of percent at its peak. Oil production collapsed from 3.2 million barrels per day in the late 1990s to around 700,000 barrels per day at its worst. Friends, that kind of collapse doesn't happen because of one bad year. It happens because systems rot. It starts with nationalization, then politicization of PDVSA, then the slow purge of engineers, managers, geologists, and technicians who actually knew how to keep the system running. Oil is not magic. It's chemistry, it's logistics, it's maintenance schedules and spare parts and institutional memory. Remove expertise, and production doesn't just fall, it unravels. Then came sanctions, financial sanctions, oil sanctions, shipping and insurance bans. And as international institutions warned, quietly, technically, uncomfortably, sanctions don't rebuild broken institutions. They amplify collapse when institutions are already hollowed out. Add corruption, currency controls, capital flight, political repression. What you get is not reform, you get economic life support. But geopolitics doesn't stop when economies fail, it adapts. As Washington tightened pressure, others moved in. Russia provided loans, technical support, and security contractors. China extended credit lines and long-term oil offtake deals. Oil today, leverage tomorrow. Iran supplied refining assistance, fuel swaps, and sanction evasion expertise. And then there's Cuba. Pay attention here. Cuba didn't bring tanks, it didn't bring money, it brought security architecture, intelligence, counterintelligence, internal control systems, because regime survival isn't about popularity, it's about monitoring elites, controlling information, and neutralizing threats before they surface. Cuba has spent decades perfecting that model. Now fast forward to January 2026. Global energy markets are tight. Years of underinvestment have thinned spare capacity. Geopolitical shocks keep removing supply faster than it can be replaced. Oil prices are sensitive. Futures move on rumors. Insurance premiums spike before facts are confirmed. U.S. refiners still need heavy crude. Europe is still searching for stable alternatives. Every barrel suddenly matters again. Washington briefly flirts with easing sanctions, then pulls back. Why? Because sanctions aren't punishment, they're leverage. And here's the twist, friends. For years, the assumption was that Washington wouldn't cross certain lines in the Western Hemisphere. But what if those lines already moved? Donald Trump was never a sanctions-first strategist. His worldview was transactional, blunt, and risk-tolerant. Pressure without results, in his view, was failure. Results required shock. Shock required risk. And risk, when calculated, creates leverage faster than patience ever could. So ask yourself, if sanctions didn't break the regime, if negotiations stalled, if oil markets tightened, what would? This is where the reports start. Fragmented, unofficial, denied. They describe a precision operation, short duration, minimal footprint. Not the palace, the person. A message, not an occupation. Is this confirmed? No. Is it proven? No. But is it strategically logical? Friends, look at the incentives. Capturing a leader creates maximum leverage with minimal exposure. No occupation, no Iraq-style quagmire, no decade-long nation-building experiment. Instead, elites panic, loyalties fracture, negotiations reset overnight. It terrifies insiders without flattening cities. That matters. So why move now? First, energy math. Every 100,000 barrels per day swinging in or out of sanctioned supply moves prices, futures, and politics. With inflation anxiety, elections, and depleted strategic reserves, price stability becomes national security. Second, signaling. To allies, the U.S. can still act decisively in its own hemisphere. To rivals, your proxies are not untouchable. To markets, expect volatility, then compliance. Third, precedent. Limited actions at the right moment can have outsized effects. History shows that again and again. Now the whispers expand. Why Cuba? Not because of oil, because networks. Cuba functions as a security node, training, advising, coordinating. Pressure the node and the entire structure weakens. This isn't invasion talk, it's pressure reconfiguration. And Greenland? That's not ideology, that's geometry. Rare earth minerals, Arctic shipping routes, missile defense positioning, North Atlantic control. Donald Trump didn't float Greenland casually. Control there reshapes energy routes, military posture, and future access to critical resources. Not a raid target, but absolutely leveraged terrain. Here's the deeper logic. If the raid is real, it's less about Venezuela and more about reasserting escalation dominance. When rivals believe you won't cross lines, you lose initiative. When you cross them selectively, remindedly, and without spectacle, you regain it. Notice the silence. No victory speeches, no flags, no triumphalism, because ambiguity multiplies fear. As one assessment reportedly put it, uncertainty is a force multiplier. Let's be cold. Who wins? Markets that thrive on volatility, states that regain bargaining power without occupation, energy actors who can arbitrage risk, refiners if supply stabilizes under new terms. Who loses? Authoritarian networks built on impunity, middlemen skimming sanctioned trade, civilians if transitions are mismanaged, powers betting the U.S. is permanently risk-averse. But friends, there's always a price. Legitimacy costs, blowback risks, succession chaos, escalation spirals. Russia doesn't respond in Caracas, it responds elsewhere. China doesn't confront directly, it doubles down on long-term contracts and influence. Iran probes maritime choke points. This is how oil wars actually happen, not with tank battles, but with insurance premiums, shipping delays, cyber disruptions, market panic. Every rumor becomes a tax on your life. Here's the part nobody likes to say out loud. Capturing a leader does not fix institutions. It buys time. It creates leverage. What happens next decides everything. Reform or extraction, stabilization or chaos. History is unforgiving to improvisation, and markets know it. People feel it. So now the questions are yours. If a high-risk capture can reset a regional balance, does it become the new playbook or a one-off born of desperation? If pressure shifts to Cuba and leverage tightens around Greenland, are we seeing the return of hemispheric hard power or just louder signaling before negotiations? And most importantly for your wallet, will fear stabilize energy markets or permanently price volatility into everything you buy? Tell us what you think, because the future of oil, power, and intervention won't be decided in press releases. It will be decided by whether these moves work. Friends, geopolitics is physical again, strategic again, fast again, and we'll be here to break it down. Thanks for watching.